This golden retriever has been titled a superhero because of what he retrieved on the beach one Sunday afternoon. Humans are not the only beings capable of compassion and empathy. In fact, some humans might argue that there are other species that hold a more compassionate heart than we humans do. We all know about the level of loyalty that dogs possess. They would do anything for their owners and are not shy to show how they feel. There have in fact been so many rescue stories about dogs who save their families from trouble. But have you ever heard of a dog saving another animal? Well, here is a dog that went all out in trying to rescue another animal in need. So, who is the person who owns the dog that did the unthinkable? Well, his name is Mark Freely. He works as a personal injury lawyer residing in East Setauket, New York. This guy is a true animal lover, who is also the proud owner of his two lovely dogs. His dogs are an English Golden Retriever, Storm, and a Border Collie named Sarah. He also has a rabbit called Speedo. He had always loved pets ever since he was a little kid, and even though he loves all his pets in an equal manner, there is no denying that Storm was the star of the show. He is indeed the heart of the family. He has been a big help to get Sarah to settle in after she had been rescued. He would also allow Speedo to sleep on his back some days. His gentle nature has resulted in a few troubles of his own too. And if you are still not convinced that Mark is a lover of animals, there is a good reason why you should. He actually does pro bono legal work for a few local animal shelters, and has also fostered dogs for them as well. He was an effective guy when it came down to dealing with animals in need, and in the course of the last month, he took a few puppies into his custody. Storm was always helpful to them. The puppies that he took in quickly sized him up. Since he was such a gentle dog, they became very comfortable with him and turned him into a plaything of sorts. They would constantly climb over him and would also nip at his ears. But Storm would never act annoyed or irritated. Mark actually wished he was as calm and collected, as he was just like his dog. And as he saw that the dogs were getting along just fine, Mark came up with an idea. Soon after, he adopted Sarah. Mark thought that it's an excellent time for him to try and teach fetch to both the dogs. He assumed that they would love playing it and that they would have a jolly good time at the park. Sarah was an immediate fan of fetch, but Storm was quite hard to impress and include. It was such a shock for Mark to see that Storm, who had always been so cooperative and helpful at home, become so grumpy. And despite what Mark threw at him like sticks, balls, or a frisbee, Storm absolutely refused to fetch them. Even though he was a golden retriever, maybe he was an exceptional case for this kind of fun. Mark did not expect that this instinct would pop up when he least expected it to. There was one thing that the crew really enjoyed doing together. The two dogs, Storm and Sarah, always loved to go and take a long stroll along Port Jefferson Harbor. This was a beach very close to Freely's home. Mark could get the hint as to why they love spending time there so much. He believes that the dogs like this route because they are mesmerized by the sight of boats that sail to and from the harbor. And since this was the one physical activity that the three of them enjoyed doing, Mark always made sure they did so. He would always try and walk his dogs as much as he possibly could at the beach near his house. However, sometimes due to his busy schedule, he would take them out only on the weekends. One of those weekends, Storm ended up behaving in a way no one could ever imagine. So when Mark took both of his adorable dogs to the beach for another typical beach stroll, something incredible happened. This was during the middle of July, and the weather was blazing hot. Even though it was hot in the summertime, Mark's two dogs were not hesitant to go out at all. In fact, they were very excited. Since the ocean breeze was fresh and abundant, they were okay. So when they got to the beach, even though Mark was fearful that the heat might be too much, he was relieved to see that the beach was not that bad. He was happy to see that the breeze made up for the hot weather. They went about their usual route as they enjoyed the waves hugging the sands of the beach. It was indeed a majestic scene and a wonderful day, and while they were all enjoying the gorgeous day at the beach, Mark noticed something about one of his dogs. He could see that Storm was suddenly bounding and went closer to the water. He was taken aback by what he saw, but initially thought the dog was overheated. New York summers can indeed get a little overwhelming, and moreover, Storm was a long-haired breed. Whenever they went to the beach, the dogs really liked to walk on the sand and play around. But this time, it was a little different because he had never seen his dog get so close to the water. Mark became quite intrigued because in all those times they went to the beach, Storm had never done this before. But after some time, he could see the real reason why Storm did what he did. And as he observed the peculiar behavior of his dog Storm, Mark could tell that there was something else that pushed him to be this way. His dear dog was not trying to cool off at all. There was something else. He was not just swimming, Storm was eagerly moving towards something. Mark could see that his dog was going towards a lump in the sea. He assumed this to be a dead fish. Since he had been taking care of Storm for a long while, he knew all his likes and dislikes. And his Storm had a healthy appetite and would always be ready to munch on any yummy fish that was served to him. But Mark grew a little anxious that Storm would get sick had the fish been rotten or poisoned. Then Mark realized that there was something behind all of this, something he did not even suspect. And when the dog finally grabbed onto the lump that called him to the sea, Mark was still not sure what it was. Storm had been swimming towards this all along, and since Mark did not dive in too, he had to wait for his dog to return. So, after a few minutes, the dog returned with something in his mouth. This was certainly not a fish, so whatever could this be then? Mark was also concerned about one other thing. He feared that his dog might get in trouble if he swims too deep. Since he did not join Storm, he was fearful that the dog might suddenly drown, and that was a scary thought for his owner Mark. And then, after waiting intently for his golden retriever to get back, Mark was standing on the beach. For a dog lover, it would be scary enough to look at your dog swim in the big sea. You never know what lurks underwater, so you can never be too sure. Even though the dog did not seem like he was in trouble or needed help, Mark was still afraid that the worst might happen to Storm. Then, the dog was swimming back to shore with the thing in his mouth. As Mark was standing by the shore waiting for his dog to come back with the object that had taken his attention in the sea, he grew even more worried. Did the dog just get fooled by some garbage being thrown in the sea? Had he wasted his time and energy for some pile of trash that was dumped in the ocean? The revelation that Mark was faced with certainly dropped his jaw. And so, when Storm came back swimming in a hurry with the mysterious thing in his mouth, Mark had to wait to clarify what it was. He had been worried and nervous to see what his adorable dog had come back with. All of his guesses were then proven wrong when the dog finally reached the shore. Storm was actually dragging a baby deer. He laid it on the floor and Mark assumed the deer to be dead. Storm did not want to give up on the fawn. He used his nose to nudge the deer gently and then proceeded to lick it on the neck. And then Mark could see a faint shaking given by the deer. The deer had been in shock but was still breathing. Storm was lying next to the deer as Mark quickly dialed for help. He did not know whether the fawn would survive, but his dog's sheer determination made him follow through. It was very fortunate that Mark was an animal lover and a person who had spent his whole life helping animals. He then made a call to a local group he knew called Strong Island Animal Rescue League. Then, after waiting a short while, the rescue group arrived, equipped with leashes and nets. The director, Frankie Floridia, and his partner, Erica Kudsing, were very quick to arrive. So as they were waiting for the help to arrive, Storm was actually working his magic on the little fawn. During the time the people from Strong Island Animal Rescue were on their way, the fawn had already grown alert all thanks to Storm. The fawn then managed to wobble on his little legs. Mark and his dogs just watched him dart back inside the water once again. Mark was very puzzled by the way the young fawn behaved. Even his poor dog seemed to be confused as to why the deer jolted back to the sea. But then there was a perfectly good explanation behind this. They are animals of flight. They are going to take off wherever they can go, Mr. Floridia revealed later in an interview. In a yard, they will smash through a wooden fence. And after the deer calmed down, he was so shocked to see all the unfamiliar faces. His animal instincts kicked in uncontrollably. Just imagine a helpless and nervous deer walking up to 3 humans and 2 dogs. It was definitely enough to make him panic. And despite the fact that Storm had just rescued him a few minutes earlier, he was not hesitant to run after the deer once more. And since the animal rescue team was already there was nothing to worry about anymore. Mr. Floridia did not hesitate to take off his shirt and follow Storm's lead into the water to try and save the deer once again. The deer swam frantically in the sea but had not swum past about 250 feet before the rescuer managed to grab hold of him. And since the deer was freaking out by the touch of the strange human and dog, it became very difficult to handle him. It became a big challenge to hold him properly. This even resulted in a knee injury for poor Mr. Floridia. Even though this unfortunate accident happened, he still wore a smile and handed the deer over to Miss Kudsing. They did not want to let Storm's brilliant effort go to waste. And even till then, the naive fawn was not aware of the fact that these people were trying to help him. He was still resisting and could barely be held. The baby deer was constantly thrashing during the time Miss Kudsing carried him back to her van. She then laid him down on a dry towel. Only then did the poor deer start to calm down. And as the deer was now calm and rested, the rescuers began a closer inspection. They were able to get that the deer was a 3-month-old white-tailed deer. They assumed that he had probably fallen off of a sandy cliff, and he was able to survive only due to Storm's efforts. The dog was truly a superhero who saved the deer's life that summer afternoon at the beach. So, after rescuing the deer, Floridia and Kudzing gave the responsibility of taking care of the deer to Save the Animals Rescue Foundation. They immediately gave the deer all the medical attention he was in need of. Then, a few days later, the deer was in stable condition. He had to be given antibiotics and was also drinking baby goat formula. There were injuries on his head and a close eye because of the fall. And this was not the only injuries that the deer was left with. He also suffered from subcutaneous emphysema, and this basically means that the deer would need a lot of care before the rescuers can deem it fit to be kept back in the wild. The deer was in no shape to handle the wild as of now, and the dog who rescued the baby deer? Well, he became a social media hero. Since this was such an amazing story, Mark wanted other people to see what an amazing dog he had. He posted a video of the rescue on his Facebook page. In just a short span of time, the video garnered about 5.2 million views. This was not all. He was also asked to appear with Storm on TV morning shows, and New York newspapers were all in awe of his dog's amazing story. Mark was indeed proud of the pup. It was so touching, Mr. Freely revealed. It showed he really had a care and was worried about the fawn. When this tiger cub was born at the Strohen Zoo in Germany, it was sadly abandoned by his mother. So an unlikely helper came into the picture. Who was this? It was a kind-hearted, wire-haired dachshund called Monster. He adopted the cub, who then died suddenly, but his daughter Bessie grabbed the role as mother and everything fell into place. And this is another case pretty similar to the one before. Meet Scholli. This dog is a German shepherd that went on to adopt a litter of cougar cubs after zoo staff in Russia became a little concerned that the cougar parents might turn aggressive. Judging from the picture, you can clearly see that there are no boundaries and that everyone is comfortable. Domesticated tabby cat Zoe went ahead and took in abandoned wild bobcats after encountering them in an abandoned house in South Carolina. The wild baby bobcats did not take long to form a bond with Zoe. They were in friendly terms with Zoe's own kittens as well. This was such a progressive cat family. Zoe is such an open-hearted cat that is open to help any in need. All the way in San Francisco lives Koa the dog. She is a 6-year-old lab who discovered 2 orphaned rabbits nearby. This dog took in the baby rabbits as if they were her own. Although she had never given birth to puppies, this dog's motherly instincts immediately kicked in to be there for the helpless baby rabbits. It shows just how compassionate Labradors can be. Rex the dog from this photo has actually helped a baby kangaroo that unfortunately fell from the pouch of its mom. The poor kangaroo mom had been killed in a car accident. This unfortunate incident happened in Torquay, Victoria, Australia. The Joey would have definitely met with the same if Rex had not been so alert and quick to rescue.